So for treatment response, I've chosen to um, put frustration because he's going to be frustrated because he's going to find out the severity of his injury. It has led to a lack of motivation because he has been like in the after injury stage. He was really depressed and not lost motivation. And now it's helped him. The frustration I think is probably going to help him commit. Um, and the anxiety and stress I've chosen because it's beginning to accept that this is driving him to get back and to get into the swing of his regime again, and it's going to help like with the anxiety, like when he's using stress management and like stress and relaxation, he can use stress balls and things like this. Goal settings, so to motivate him to get back where he was before. So he's had a broken leg. He's not gonna be. It'll be unrealistic to say that he would be back playing football by pre-season because he won't be because he's had a double leg break. So it'll probably take up to about a year and a half to 2 years to recover. So we can say that like smart targets. So for a small target would be just like everyday things. So that would be like as soon as he comes out from um if it needs an operation or whatever, or if as soon as he gets home from being to the hospital, he can set up a plan, like a regime or nutrition plan, to make sure that he is eating the right thing so he doesn't put on weight, which would stop him from being as fit as he was. Like it would have an effect on his fitness once he did get back. But needs to make sure he's fueling his body, he's not under eating. So little things like that. So like it's creating small, medium, long targets. But like long targets could be things like by pre-season he he'd want to be using things like resistance bands, incorporating them into his workout to build up the muscles around the bone area and to get that, because obviously by pre-season he won't be playing football, but he could do little things like using resistance bands and making sure he's um, doing strength and conditioning sessions for at least an hour a day or something, just to um, help him with the stiffness and tightness so he doesn't tighten up. Strategies. So music, I've decided to give him music as a strategy because as a footballer, I think he can use it obviously when he's in his house, in his training sessions. So when he's doing his long targets, his resistance training, and even when he's doing his regime plan, that would help to make him more motivated. And because he's an elite athlete, he's a professional footballer, by staying just involved in the sport, by like turning even up to the training session, it would help him make him feel less isolated and make him feel like he is still there. Um, like even just like being bottle boy or something. And then doing a diary and a journal, I think he could benefit from that because as I said, he's a football player and then he can look back on it when he's had hard times and good times. Um, and he can write his targets down in there. That's a good way to keep his targets, and he can look back and see how far he's come, and keep just tracking his progress in it. So for the physiological responses, I think he'll be obviously during the injury in a great amount of pain and discomfort. I mean, he snapped both his bones in his leg, huge swelling, huge inflammation, no range of movement whatsoever because it's broken, because he'd been in so much pain he can't move it, um, and no stability because you can't walk on it. It's completely snapped twice. You cannot walk on that. And then after the injury, about 2 to 3 days would be more inflammation-y, swelling and pain would be less, but he would still have some there because he's only just recently broken his leg. He'd probably have it in a cast or some support kind of aid, but even if you touched it, I'm sure it probably hurt. But even after 3 months, he would have little range of movement because it's still healing. He'd have more stability than when he did first break it, but it would still be painful to walk on. He'd probably have crutches. Um, And then the second case study is Ed Slater, who's a rugby player, and he suffered damaged ligaments in his right knee. His is a lot shorter than um, James McCarthy's because this is only damaged ligaments. It's still bad, but James has broken his leg in two places, whereas the damaged ligaments will probably be a quicker recovery time for him. But I've decided to give him frustration as his first important emotion because he's a rugby player, so I doubt he's quite strong and tough. But at the same time, he probably was thinking like, why did I go in for that tackle? Why did I let him grab me like that? My form was bad when I did that, or whatever. But the second one is, I think, is denial, because that would be when like it would start to kick in, like that would be his initial shock and his initial irritation with it, and then bargaining. He'd be trying to. He's a rugby player, so he'd be trying to get out of it and be like, I'm fine, because he's quite strong and tough. Um, and like he probably wouldn't want to make out that he was like a weak and in pain or whatever. And then frustration, because again he'd come back to the first port of call because he would be really frustrated and really angry that he got injured. Then after the injury, I chose anger, because that would be like throwing the rugby ball on the floor, it, or even like resenting his family or his coach, or I don't his nutritionist or anyone like that's in his life. He'd be really angry at, and he probably wouldn't want to do anything because he's out for the whole season now with damaged ligaments. It would take up to 2 months to recover. So like even just get to the repair stage, it would be up to 2 months, and then anything after would be remodeling. Then depression and isolation kind of comes together because obviously he'd be at home and he'd be very bored and isolated, and it would that depression is when you sit around and it starts to kick in that you're injured. And then acceptance, because he's probably going to finally, as I say, it's quicker than a football player because um he's probably going to try accept it a lot quicker so he can get on and be a bit more motivated. So that's why I've chosen motivation as a treatment response. And goal setting, because from his treatment he'd probably feel a bit more motivated. He'd want to get back to his fitness level, his and what he can do, and he'd begin to start setting goals and like achievements and things like that. So he could use the diary. So in that way, he used the strategy of a diary to write down his motivation for the day, like praising himself for what he did, what bad, what he could improve on. And then music while he's doing this, like James McCarthy, and staying involved in sport as well as James, like just a video analysing his rugby players, throwing the ball to them in warm up, um, and even doing this during the rehabilitation phase would help him to um, keep him involved. And he could be on team talks saying what he thought went really well in the session for the other players, and then he could write about that in his diary, and that would make him more motivated, and that would be in response to the treatment because he could look back on it. During the injury, again, a bit like James McCarthy, it damaged ligaments, so it's kind of a grade. From what the research that I did said, it was a kind of a high end spec of the grade 2. So it's kind of, I'd say it was more grade 3 injury, um, because he was out for 6 months. Um, and so he'd be obviously experience high pain. He would have low to moderate range of motion. I've said low because damaged ligaments you can probably still move it, but it's painful to do so. You would avoid it. You not really want to move it. Obviously, no stability. You can't really stand on your leg if you've got damaged ligaments. It's painful. You'd probably be on crutches. And then high inflammation because it's all the tissue fluid swells up around all the vessels and the tissues in the muscles to protect them. And then you definitely wouldn't be able to carry on. If you can't walk, you can't carry on. You can't play rugby on that. And then after the injury, 2 to 3 days of swelling, some discomfort, tenderness is probably a lot of the swelling's probably gone down by day 5, I'd say. But obviously it'd be still tender and uncomfortable. And then I think he would expect to be back up and have a moderate range of motion by month. It was low to start with, but I think he'd probably be up to a moderate range, and therefore he'd probably be able to walk on it, and he'd still be on crutches or a wheelchair, but he'd have some stability. Like he wouldn't be able to lean all his body weight, but he'd probably just be able to like tap, like keep stand on 2 legs. He probably wouldn't be able to bear all his weight on one leg though.